On this episode of No Show Prep Book Reviews, we will be reviewing Plum Island, written by Nelson DeMille and read by Scott Brick. I didn't read it this week. Jason beat me to it. He read it. So Jason is our week. I have read it. I have read it 3 or 4 times. It's a fantastic book, in my opinion. So, Jason, so what do you think? What did you think about the book this time through, the last time through, any time through? What's your opinion of the overall?
All right. So first off, Plum Island is an action adventure. It's definitely an action. Think like John Wayne meets like Die Hard. Yeah, honestly, I picture Bruce Willis when I think about this book. Speaking of which, doesn't Ted look just like Bruce Willis, but with more hair? Ted is dressed as it appears as John Corey. John Corey is a police officer who took several rounds to the body and may have been neutered, as he explains that his love interest, or oh my. Now that's what you put in a holster, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, you see, I'm convalescing right now. I got shot in New York.
So he's a convalescing police officer in a small town outside of New York. Just in New York City. He's near Plum Island. If you Google it, it's there. Plum Island is a chemical facility where they are attempting to find cures for potential animal diseases, but are they also trying to create death in a bottle for the human population? Our hero has to kind of juggle that plus a death. A murder of friends of his. He's asked to step in and help the local police department, as they are a 5-man shop, I believe, with no experience handling murders. He quickly finds himself stuck in a situation where everyone he seems to talk to dies. Him and his favorite love interest, I say favorite because this man, he's friends with all the ladies, and it's like every time he meets one, they get killed. He stumbles between politics, power, and oh, by the way, he's convalescing, so he's not supposed to be working, but he has to decide on his future and helping his friends who've been brutally murdered. John Corey is a great likable character. Every line is a great one-liner singer. It'll have you laughing the entire book. I think my favorite line is when he says, I'm convalescing. There's a camera. Let me practice coughing up blood. It's unbelievable. Captain Kidd is a pirate, which spent most of his life harassing American ships, and we live vicariously through that because we're hoping to find hidden treasure, and it's his hidden treasure we're looking for. If you look up the history on Captain Kidd, they run directly parallel to this book. They don't change it in any way at all. It's interesting that they use real history to help out with this. I think my favorite part is Ted's favorite part. Tell us about it, Ted.
My favorite part? I really think one thing I like about our author, of the books we read so far, and we read several Nelson DeMille, he is a fantastic author. He's not definitely a new author. This book is one of a more later series, but he has plenty of books that are from the 80s. But what I like about this author is that he researches his subjects and he uses real places. Plum Island is a real island that actually has a animal testing center on it, and our book kind of centers around. It uses Plum Island as a definite fixture piece. I'd forgotten about Captain Kidd. I hadn't read it in a while, and he does. He chases around Captain Kidd, and that figures into the story. It's just fascinating because our author is able to put together a story that's entirely fiction, but is able to use elements from real life, real places, real things, real news happenings, and he really works them into a story. You could kind of read, and and remember what the time was like, because a lot of times our hero is reading the newspaper or watching TV, and current events of the time are on. So, what do you think about the reader, Scott Brick? He's one of our favorites.
So Scott Brick, first of all, congratulations, Mr. Brick. He has just been recently inducted into the Reading Hall of Fame forever. Not just Audible, but of any voiceover ever. He is considered the greatest reader ever.
Really?
My favorite part about Scott Brick, yeah, we talked about it, it's amazing. My favorite part about it is, I can't prove this, I haven't spoken to him, but after listening to several parts he's played, I think he does deep research into the role he's going to take on. He becomes John Corey. John Corey is a typical New York City police officer. He's a detective. He has seen more countless gruesome murders than any person should ever see. And he counters it with sadistic, sardonic humor. My favorite line that he uses is, "Everyone's staring at me and enjoying my joke. I haven't been this embarrassed since I slipped, fell in slime, and landed on a 10-day-old corpse." That's a sticky situation. I mean, it's so funny, but Scott does a great job of not reading the line, but telling you the joke. He understands what the author's trying to put in place. He doesn't just simply read the story to you. He amplifies the story through his skill set. If you're looking for a book that's going to keep you laughing, educate you a little bit on history of the area, but mostly just provide you a great 20 hours of entertainment, this book has it all.
Yeah, 20 hours.
20 hours.
I mean, I listen to books all the time because I drive a lot, and man, 20 hours. That's it's definitely worth the investment. That'll take me for a couple of weeks, to get through 20 hours.
Yeah. So if you like The General's Daughter, the movie, same author, he does a great job. Scott Brick actually does The General's Daughter as well.
Reading it.
And I'm telling you that he reads it. Nelson DeMille wrote it. Scott Brick reads it. It is equally well done. This is the first book in the John Corey series, and it's an excellent series. Excellent. All books are done by Scott Brick, which is very key in Audible to stick with the same reader. I think my favorite part about John Corey is, it doesn't matter if the chips are down or if he's on top of life. John Corey's always John Corey. He is the exact opposite of the book we did last week, Harry Dresden. Harry Dresden is a very humanized character who, when the chips are down, he has the same fear and animosity we do. When the chips are down for John Corey, man, he straps on the cape and turns into Superman. Yeah. And it's a fun way to go. The books are different, but the result is the same. You're going to love it. It's a great way to go. And I give it 5 out of 5. I'm not sure what you rated it, Ted, but it's probably one of my favorite books I've ever read.
It's a great book. I mean, it does check all the boxes. It hits all the marks. As far as it being like my favorite, it's probably not my favorite book, but I do love it, and I can't wait to read it again. In the future, I can't wait to get through all these books for these book reviews. So, we started on a story. John Corey, he's convalescing. He's hanging out at like his uncle's house on the Sound somewhere up there in New Jersey or off Maine. I'm really not sure where he's at.
Upstate New York.
Yeah, upstate New York. That's right, upstate New York, right along the Sound, and I say he's just sitting on his back porch, drinking a beer, watching the boats, and the sheriff shows up and says, "Hey, man, I got a dead body. Come check this out." And the book really just takes off. We don't have any like really downtime. There's not a lot of character development, and I think you mentioned this before, that this book, it is the first of the series, but it also was not going to be a series. I don't believe. I think it was going to be standalone. I kind of wonder if our author hadn't even planned a lot of backstory, other than the fact that John Corey's been shot a few times. He's hanging out on his uncle's house. That's really all we know about John. That's all we need to know about John. This book is action. It just takes off. First he's checking out some dead bodies, and he starts work like right then. I learned a lot about how detectives work I mean, I'd read like a lot of Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes just like knows things. He's like picking up on clues in the room. But real detectives, sometimes there's just not clues because we're all smart enough to know to like wipe our fingerprints down. If you ain't got a fingerprint, you can't really, if you don't have like video proof or something. John Corey, our author through John Corey, teaches plotting detective work. I didn't even know that was a word until I got to these books. He plots like you just something happens, a murder. He writes it in his book. And then he goes, well, there was a shoe in the yard. You write it down because you just never know that somebody may be missing a shoe in a day or two. You're like, might be the same shoe. Who knew? I didn't know. Plotting, but
I love that you said that because when he comes across the murder scene, the initial murder, he does that. He tells us, the reader, he's like, victim 1, clay on her shoes. Victim 2, small gunshot wound in the center of the head. Victim 1, small gunshot wound in the middle of the head. And he goes through all these details. He looks inside and says, big screen TV still there. Jewelry still wherever. Okay, this was not a drug deal. This wasn't a thief. And old sheriff, the guy that called him because he has no experience, said, John, looks like a bunch of druggies stole stuff out of the house. John goes, yeah, me too. I'll take my buck a day. I'm done. And he goes, well, what do you see? Looks like a druggie ran through the house. And he flashes into his head. He says, readers, there was no druggie here. This was obviously an assassination. And he goes, John, there's no way this was an assassination, was there? No, definitely druggies. Take me back to my house. Like, because John is dealing with the fact that, 1, he's on convalescent. 2, as Ted pointed out, he's been shot several times. At one point, the sheriff says, what have you been doing all day? He says, trying to get my lungs to heal. Because he's just been shot through the body several times. But it's funny that we, the reader, get the deep understanding of, again, a New York City detective. Thanks to Scott Brick, we get to hear the voice that tells us it's in my head and the voice that means it's out of my head. And it's so neat to hear he's just a sarcastic jerk, but he's the kind of sarcastic jerk you want on your team, not against you. But yeah, it's an excellent read. And you're right. There's so much education that's handed out free in this book for that position.
But so later on in the book, closer towards the end, we try not to reveal endings in our book reviews. One of the stars of the book is a Formula 303. It's a real speedboat. It's a real thing. I don't know how fast it is. It's a huge boat. John Corey, though, and one of the girls, Beth Penrose, I believe, they're racing out to Plum Island because they're trying to catch the killer. The killer is still out there, and it's a horrible storm going on. And this boat ride lasts, I believe, through more than a chapter.
Oh man, it's like half a book. It's not.
Oh, and man, it's intense, and I'm just living in the scene, man. The boat's filling with water, they're running out of gas. You get to the point, our hero gets to the point where there's turning back isn't an option because turning back is further than going forward. The seas are just crazy high. They're hitting waves that are several times higher than the boat. Waves are coming over the boat, and you're just living in the moment, man. It's just better than, it's almost as good as TV. But they also, him and Beth Penrose, they also reach the point where they decide that they're single, they have no family. Catching a killer to them is better than living. If they could just catch the killer, they've turning back might mean life, but going forward means that their life might mean something. And that's terrible to feel that. But I felt that when I'm reading it, I feel that they've got to that point where catching a killer is more meaningful than just staying stateside or on land and just living through the storm. And they live, they make it.
So it's interesting you brought that up because John brings up at one point with the Beth Penrose that when he got there convalescing, that he'd never been in a boat before, and that he was literally terrified of the sea. And the 2 characters that die before the book even starts, he gives backstory and reveals that they found him in a bar and saw that he was distraught and depressed. He doesn't say it, but you get the impression from the book that he was contemplating suicide. He had just been divorced. He's been shot several times. The people who wanted to shoot him are not done. They're still looking for him. He says at one point he owes it to them because they found him in a dark place in his life and they have saved his life. So by teaching them how to sail, by teaching them how to run their boat, the Formula 303, which he tells us in the book means 30 feet 3 inches long, they actually turned out they actually helped catch the killer that killed him. Because if they don't teach you all those things, then there's no way they could have used this Formula 303 to catch anyone. Beth Penrose is a new, fresh out of college attorney from Idaho or from Iowa. From Iowa. There's no oceans in Iowa, by the way. I don't care what they try to say. So it's kind of neat that our author brings up a trivial point at the beginning of the book that, as Ted just pointed out, is the end of the book. It is the climax. It is the big hitter at the end. And what a great read. What a great author. I don't want to give away too much because it's such a great book. But if you're looking for great lines that you're going to laugh at, you're looking for a great storyline. And by the way, I've read the book twice or listened to it twice. And both times I didn't like the guilty party. In both times I was still shocked that he was the guilty party. I mean, it's just so well written. It is not. If you read this book and you figure out who the killer is before you're halfway through the book, and he gives you everything, he tosses out all the pieces. It's just up for you to figure it out. I thought so. When I listened to it this time again, for the first time in 3 reads, I heard the pieces that I was supposed to hear the first time I figured it out.
Yeah.
So if you do it, put it in the comments. Tell me when you figure it out, and I don't know. Let me know when you did it. It'd be better than me if you got it figured out before, let's say before about hour 12. Hour 12, hour 13 is when you pretty much know he gives it away. It's not because I'm smarter than he is. But,
all right.
Yeah, I hope you guys like it. Hope this motivation to read it.
All right, well, click like and subscribe and share our video. Share it to everybody.
Share. Thanks for joining us, John Corey.